Hi everybody, and welcome to the 5th episode of the learning series with me, James Hopwood, UK Agriculture Manager here at Versailles. And I look a bit strange today. That's because I've taken 5 minutes at the lunchtime on this beautiful May day to come round and have a look at my bees. And I'm in a really fortunate position to keep a couple of hives of bees. I've been keeping bees for about 5 years now, but I feel it's really important that I do my bit for biodiversity, because bees are so incredibly important to our future and to the success of the planet today. Now, bees have been flying and capturing honey and pollinating plants for about 125 million years. So really important as part of our development and the development of the plants we see around us today. And bees are within themselves fascinating little creatures. They've got an incredible sense of navigation with a polarized vision. They can see through clouds to see where the sun is and also sense the magnetization of the earth to navigate themselves up to 5 miles away from the hive to gather pollen and nectar to bring back. The nectar, as we all know, goes in to make the honey as a carbohydrate, as a source of energy for the bees, and the pollen comes back and is mixed with water into sort of a bread type mixture, which is ultimately the proteins that the bees need to breed their young on. So the larvae within these within the cells in this hive are being fed on the pollen and water mix that the bees are creating. Bees also have incredible sight and vision, and their vision through 5 eyes tends to move more towards, or is moved more towards the blue light end of the spectrum, and ultraviolet, which means bees have an incredible sense of vision when it comes to seeing flowers, and flowers are very, very vivid because of the spectrum that flowers give off. But actually, interestingly, bees are blind to red light and can't see any red light whatsoever. So it's that ultraviolet light which attracts them into the colourful flowers, and they see them very, very vividly against the greens of grass, etc. So we'll just go in and have a little look in this hive. Down here in what we call supers, a small box are called supers, and on here we have some honey. This is where the honey comes in to be gathered by the bees, and you can see there all that comb and wax has been drawn out, and the bees are working away there, popping that honey into those cells. They'll cap that off, and then I will take that away to pop into a jar. This is one I made earlier here. So we've got a couple of supers on there now, and the bees are working away to fill those. It's really important we look at good hygiene and keep the hive nice and clean and give them clean wax to grow their young on and put the honey on. And so as we go down into this box here, I'm going to pull out one of these frames and have a look. So in a hive like this, we have one queen, thousands of worker bees, and a few hundred male drone bees. All the workers are female. As you can see there's a little bee with a green dot on its back. Just walking away there, and that is our queen bee. So that queen bee, that's from last year. That queen bee went up into the sky to be mated, and has been in this hive ever since, laying thousands of eggs. And this bee will produce about 40 to 50,000 bees in this hive this year. And as I say, those bees have been fed, and as you can see on here, bees are working away to feed those young. And a bee will travel, take this one out, there's lots of little eggs on there. As you can see, this one there, all of those cells there are developing young. So the eggs have been laid in those cells. Those eggs have hatched, and the larvae has then been fed with that pollen and water mix, those proteins it needs to develop. Those larvae have developed, and then the bees, once that is a fully developed bee, they've capped it for the bee to ultimately mature into a young bee that we see working on these cells today. As you can see there, a little bit of a close-up look. There's some larvae, if you can see them developing as well. So this is a really strong hive of bees, and we'll keep looking at this time of year every once a week, just to make sure the hive is developing on quite nicely. But bees are incredible, and nature is an amazing thing when you see bees developing as they are. So a bee can fly 15 to 20 miles an hour on the way out to find food, on the way back only 12 miles an hour. But it's really interesting that that's 150,000 miles it takes to gather 1 kilogram of honey. So incredible amount of work, and within any average day this colony of bees will fly the equivalent distance to the moon on all of its travels. So a huge amount of work going on in this hive of bees at the moment, especially when the weather is as good as it is. So what does that mean for us in terms of how important bees are? Well, bees ultimately contribute in the region of £700 million to the UK economy every year. And on a wider scale than that, bees are responsible for the production and fertilisation of 3/4 of all of the agricultural and food crops on Earth. So incredibly important in feeding our growing global population is the existence and survival of bees. So it's important I'm doing my little bit to look after these, but there's so much we can do as a business, as an organisation, but also as individuals in the home. And so from a nomad perspective, there's a lot of work going on cross-collaboratively with different organisations to look at how we improve the biodiversity in the business. On a local level, within UK agriculture, we've worked with our growers now for a number of years, developing biodiversity action plans with every single pea grower. Now, peas actually don't require bees. Peas cross-pollinate themselves, and pollination happens in a number of ways. But it's really important that we work with our growers. One, to help capture carbon, because bees don't, the balance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere does affect the bees, so it's important we work with our growers to capture carbon. But it's also really important that we work with our growers to provide good pollination sites for bees. Some of our growers are growing all sorts of different flowering mixes around the corners and edges of their fields on less productive land to help our pollinators and our bees thrive at this time of year. So lots of incredibly good work going on across the business, and that continues to be a focus going forward, which I'm really pleased to say, which is great news. But it also means that you can do your piece this weekend, and by following the links that we'll put on the email, you can have a look at plants that are ideal. And whether you've got a garden or a patio or a balcony or even a potted plant in a kitchen window, you can grow plants that are great for pollinators. And if you see a bee looking a little bit sorry for itself, then get a small teaspoon with a little bit of sugar in solution, pop it next to the bee, and the bee will go to it, get the energy it needs to get back to the hive. Bees are pretty harmless, really, in the fact that they won't come and attack you. So if you just calm around them, they'll be calm around you. So that's it for now. I'll focus in, just have a closer look in at what's happening and see the bees at work. And that's all for now, and I'll see you again.